Good morning. It being 9 a.m. on Friday, November 14th, 2025, I call to order this meeting of the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust. During this meeting, we'll be adjourning temporarily to also hold a meeting of the Housing Partnership Committee. We'll get right into the agenda. The agenda has been posted. This is an in-person meeting. It is being recorded and broadcast for live and future viewing by Westborough TV. We thank them for that service to the committee and to the community. So first on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the trust's meetings of September 10th and September 12th, 2025. Are there any questions, comments about the minutes for September 10th?
I reviewed them.
Okay. Any for September 12th?
Move we approve the minutes of September 10 and 12.
Second.
Okay, great. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0, 6 being present. Someone's angry. Okay, next on the agenda is affordable home activity, most notably a resale at 1012 Bradish Lane, and also a refinance of a unit at 3 Stagecoach Circle. So for the property at Bradish Lane, the information is in the packet. This has an LIP affordable housing deed rider in perpetuity on the property. EOHLC has set the maximum sale price of $215,600, and we are within the 90-day period where the seller is looking to identify an eligible purchaser. The deed restriction will remain in effect regardless of the buyer, and we have 3 options. One, we can recommend the town not purchase the property. That's option A. Option B is recommend the town purchase the property. Or C, the conditional recommendation, which is what we've been doing on other similar properties, where we recommend the town or the trust as an agent for the town to purchase the property if an eligible buyer cannot be found within the initial 90-day window or any 60-day extension that EOHLC sets. And so that would guarantee that would give us the opportunity then to take the property, put it back on the market as an affordable unit without the time restriction, so that it not only stays affordable, but goes to an eligible household.
Question?
Yes.
I was surprised that the letter from the owner came from an address that's different from the property address.
Okay.
Is the property vacant, or has the owner not been living there?
I'm not sure of the status.
Can we verify that that it has been an owner-occupied property? And it's possible with the data we have to conclude that the owner has not been living there, and that would be a problem. It's a separate problem from what action we take, but that would be a problem.
Right, that would be an issue that EOHLC would have to.
And that we would want to initiate a conversation with them about. I mean, the town is probably the monitoring agent, and as monitoring agent, we would have some responsibility.
It could just be that they've already bought it.
It could be that they've already moved.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to be.
It could be that they moved. It could have been the individual living there's passed away, and this is the
Yeah, I
estate.
mean, we're just trying to cross
Yeah.
the T's and dot the I's and make sure that we haven't missed something. But
Okay.
Well, I think we should move forward with, I agree, Hank,
Yeah.
completely. I would suggest we move forward with
Option
Okay.
C, I assume, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's what we've normally done.
Yeah.
So there are 2 motions. One is obviously for the recommendation, and the second would be to appropriate the funds.
So the first motion, I move to recommend to the select board that the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust, acting as an agent for the town, exercise the town's purchase option for the property at 1012 Bradish Lane, described as Assessor ID 18-5-222. On the mic here, per section 1 sub A of the local initiative program, affordable housing deed rider dated 1/31/2017 and recorded in book 56690 on page 365 of the Worcester Registry of Deeds, provided the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, the OHLC, formerly the Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, as monitoring agent is unable to locate and select an eligible purchaser that enters into a purchase and sale agreement within 90 days of EOHLC's receipt of the conveyance notice or during any authorized extension period.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussions, questions, comments? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? No. So it's 6-0, 6 being present. Motion passes. Second
I'll
motion.
make the second motion. Move to appropriate, I move to appropriate $215,600 and the related fees and expenses necessary to purchase the property at 1012 Bradish Lane, described as Assessor ID 18-5-222, pursuant to the local initiative program, Affordable Housing Deed Rider dated 1/31/2017, and recorded in book 56690 on page 365 by the Worcester Registry of Deeds.
Second?
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Nope, seeing none. I'll take the vote. All in favor? That's unanimous, 6-0, 6 being present. Thank you very much.
Do we want to take an action item to follow up?
Yeah, but we asked the
Yeah, yeah.
Kristen to please
Kristen's-
follow up and report
Okay,
back to
Kristen's going to do that.
just
Okay,
drop
great.
us an email as to what the answer is, what the follow-up.
I would contact Riego and just
So I
ask if
just-
she's aware if the
Just
building's
for-
been vacant or if there's.
Yeah, just we noticed.
We noticed.
Yeah,
We noticed this, and
I'm not sure, but I think I noticed that the assessed value is higher than the resale value.
Yeah, that was just gonna.
Yeah.
Would you please bring that to the attention of the town assessor and ask them to let us know why? Because that's not allowed.
So I was gonna make a
Well,
comment.
But hold on, to talk to Hank's point, it can actually happen because the assessed value gets set at the time the unit's sold.
Yep.
And then adjusts as property values in the community adjust percentage-wise. When the property gets ready to get sold, the assessed value may mismatch because of things such as interest rates. Like, for example, a higher interest rate lowers the maximum sell price because the cost of the mortgage, et cetera, is calculated into the payment that has to meet the 30% rule. And so, given that interest rates have gone up,
Yep,
there's a good chance that has put the sell
Yeah,
price down, and that's the
just like to
discrepancy.
verify that we're doing a good job of
Monitoring.
monitoring
Yeah.
that. I mean, I know that the town, the finance department monitors that stuff. Just want to be sure that we're in compliance.
Yeah.
and I assume that the assessment, assuming the
assessment
sale
will-
goes through, the assessment will then be
Reset.
It will
reset
be
to
reset
the
down
sale
to
price.
the selling price, right?
Well, they might have to file an abatement.
No, the assessor would. The assessor would set,
Okay, you think that'll be automatic?
well, because the maximum selling price is the value of the home as an affordable home. So
Sure.
that would be reflected in the assessment.
Right, but would it be reflected in next fiscal year's assessment?
It would be,
Immediate.
it's whenever they reassess.
It would,
Right, so next fiscal.
yeah.
I mean, if I understand correctly, the assessor cannot change the taxes for this year after the rate's been set. And I think the rate gets set in the fall. I don't remember exactly when.
I'm not sure on the timing, but
That's why I'm saying that the buyer may have to request an abatement for this year's taxes.
Yeah, and he may be outside the abatement window. I don't know.
Right, right. So,
Right.
anyway, we'll bring it to the assessor's attention and, yeah, okay. Same thing with, I was gonna make the point, I looked up the address that, was on the letter and it's not, she doesn't own that property, so it could just be,
Yeah, it could be a
Simple
temporary
as-
rental or something.
or it could just moved
Just
in with a
Just good due
boyfriend or something. Who
diligence.
knows?
that, you know,
I don't even know
know-
if it's a she, so.
But, yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
good due diligence.
or
that
if
we
it, I mean,
follow through.
this could be a family member
They,
in the
I should
state.
say they, right?
Right, and
They
it's,
could have moved in with somebody.
This could be the executor of an estate. We're not.
We don't
There are
know.
many reasons why the new
Anyway,
address may
we'll
not match.
just ask Kristen
Okay.
to follow up. Yeah.
Okay, so the motion would be, get back to the. So that's there. So next is the refinance of, I almost skipped over it, 3 Stagecoach Circle. The information that we've been provided includes the LIP Affordable Housing D Rider. It's an in perpetuity. There are rules when it comes to refinancing, which is that the interest rate on the loan can be no more than 2 points above the current mass housing rate for loans they provide. So that would put a cap on the interest rate currently at 7%. The refinancing documents are at 6.625%. So it's the loan conforms to needing to be fixed and conventional. Has no more than 2 points. I believe it's a 0-point loan. The length of the loan is 30 years is required. And the loan amount is less than 97% of the maximum resale price for the first mortgage refinance, which this is it. And it's well within the conforming of that requirement as well.
I wonder, is this the one that was sold? There was one on Stagecoach that was sold, came on the market, because this is, there are 3 units there that are age-restricted affordable condos. I don't know if this is the one that was sold recently. We'd probably, the deed would show. Yeah, it was, I believe that, yeah, in 23, December of 23.
Right.
So a year plus
Well,
ago.
Yeah, there was a December 23 was unit 3, yeah, this is the
Yeah,
one.
yeah, this is the same one. So they're
And that
just
would-
refinancing, maybe getting a better rate or whatever.
Well, that makes sense. A lot of people who bought in 23 are refinancing right now.
Yeah. Okay, so the motion would be effectively on refinancing EOHLC and the town have to approve that the LIP request is complete and compliant, so that the financing company can go ahead and close the loan. So the motion would be whether we want to approve the request to refinance. And if someone wants to make that motion?
I'll make the motion. I move to approve the local initiative program request to refinance for 3 Stagecoach Circle Unit 11, Westborough, Mass. 01581, as detailed in the application.
Second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion or questions?
I'm just curious about this. In terms of, I'm assuming this is by law, we are required to review this.
Yes.
Just seems weird to be putting someone's refinance on public display.
made a comment because I thought that as well. That the packet that I put with the clerk of all the meeting documents won't have those financial documents taken out. Like it'll just be their application page. I think that's appropriate. to not put that.
I saw that note in the email. Now that makes sense to me. Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
So the one you're looking at is different than what will be posted just in that those financial documents.
Got it.
Makes
So-
sense.
Okay.
But I guess I'm curious, is there no way to do this in executive session? It has to be done in,
Um, it-
for future,
It's typically, it's not the value of, it doesn't relate to real estate that we would be considering
that would have impact on, yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
Or for the town, so there, it doesn't quite meet the qualifications. There was information that was sent to us that we don't actually need, like, we don't need the current mortgage statement and things of that nature. We just need effectively the cover sheet from the mortgage application that outlines the price, the interest rate, and those conditions to validate it.
Yeah.
And all of that information gets, is filed with the Registry of Deeds on closing anyway. So that is public, becomes, is public information. So yeah, so things like, their existing mortgage statement, isn't anything that we need for, for that.
Okay.
And that's really where their financial information is coming from.
Okay.
Because we're not seeing anything we're not seeing anything respective to their income or anything other like that, but that's a good question. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'll take the vote. All in favor? 6-0, 6 being present. Kristen, can you let the town manager and EOHLC know that the trust in our role has provided our approval? So I believe the select board will need to do the same on the application. Okay. So next on the agenda, I move that we enter into a meeting of the Housing Partnership Committee to discuss items on that committee's agenda, which is fundamentally the Post Road Development Project, and that we will be returning to a meeting of the Housing Trust upon conclusion of the Housing Partnership Committee.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Passes 6-0, 6 being present. So now we are in a meeting of the Housing Partnership Committee. As a refresh and for the public who's watching, the role of the Housing Partnership Committee as it relates to this meeting is the work members of the Housing Partnership Committee do with developers to help them get to, and in some cases through, the permitting process for projects that involve affordable housing. And so we thought it would be good. There are times where the Housing Partnership Committee may vote in support of or address concerns of aspects of a particular project. We haven't, for this Post Road development, which are, again, for reference, it's a relatively fairly large development, close to 400 units of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom rentals, high-end rentals, high amenity buildings at 171, 221, and 223 Turnpike Road, which is on the north side of Route 9, right near 135, and 222 Turnpike on the south side. I'm also close to that intersection. And the work that Ed and I did with the developers was really around some of the financial aspects of the project as they relate to affordable housing, as their initial request was to effectively reduce the affordable housing component with no compensation to the town. And they were looking, so that's, that was the starting point. We provided input to the developer. At some of the meetings, members of the planning board and their working group were present to discuss it. And now the developer has put their proposal together and is now going before the planning board for the public hearing. And so that's, now their proposal is actually official. It's, on the docket, and we know what it is, and we can discuss and address it as it, as it moves forward. There was some press on the project saying that they worked with the Housing Trust. So I want this is really to let people know what that entailed. What they included in their permit submission was not one of the options that we suggested that we felt would be best for the town. It's slightly lower numbers on the affordability side. A lot of the discussion was really about, and stepping back is and for the public's benefit as well, our current inclusionary zoning laws are 20% affordable and moderate income. Affordable is 80% AMI, affordable or below, with an average of 70%. Moderate income is 120% AMI. The 5% of the units that are moderate income don't count towards our SHI inventory with the state, but they do create expanded affordability for people who might otherwise not be able to get into market rate. Some of the things that we took into consideration in
Just for public, and 15% of the units by the inclusionary zoning are to be on average, it's 15%.
on average, right,
70% AMI.
right, which would mean a mix of 80, 70, 60, 50,
However they
whatever
wanna
works
do it,
for
so
the
6,
developer to get to
70%.
that 70.
Right.
So they were looking to buy down to 10% SHI and no moderate. Clearly, actually, they were looking to eliminate all affordable housing, which would put us backwards, which we said that's a no. And there would be pitchforks and torches at the meeting. And so there was discussion about, different options. I believe their submission is 10% AMI and 5% moderate,
At 80%.
with all of the affordable, the SHI at 80%. So no lower AMI units.
Not average, 70.
Not average. So the average would be 80% instead of 70%. The crux of our discussion, beyond the detailed economics of the project and other issues they have with, their argument is the affordability creates a burden on the construction cost, which is, that term burden for the developer is what they use in court when they challenge planning board decisions, and you want to avoid that. A lot of our discussion was really around the fact that our zoning bylaw has a very high price for buy down from SHI to market, but doesn't specify buy down from market to affordable, from market to moderate or moderate to affordable. And so we felt that the planning board could consider a lower buy down if they were taking units from market to moderate income. Well, for moderate, from moderate to market, or they wanted to take some from SHI to moderate. And so I think our preferred, in the work we did with them, our suggestion to them would be to consider 10% affordable and 10% moderate, and with a lower per unit buy down cost. Their buy down offer of $1 million is what it is. Obviously, we'd always like larger amounts on that. And as this goes forward, we can, in our next meeting, once they've had their initial public hearing, December 5th, December 2nd. So our meeting in December, we can talk about this in more detail, and come up with any feedback or recommendation we want to make to the planning board as far as the public hearing process goes.
Do we, just a question, might the planning board have any expectation that we would come up with a statement prior to the December 2nd meeting, or is that primarily the developers, Post Road, presenting their?
This isn't going to be one and done.
No,
Oh,
do-
highly doubt it.
Yeah.
Do we get sign off on their submission?
No.
No.
Okay.
No. We're simply
making a
We're
letter of
at,
recommendation.
our role is advocacy
No, I
in a
understand.
project like this.
Neither we nor the Housing Trust gets sign off on their submission.
Correct.
That $1 million buy down, is that allocated anywhere?
I'd have to check the actual wording of the submission. I believe it's allocated for affordable housing because they're proposing other mitigation relative to the redesign of the intersection of Route 9 and 135. And we did ask that that be explicitly separated so that, because the planning board does have discretion and latitude in how affordable housing buy down dollars are used. And
We don't want
obviously,
them to
we
use
prefer
the
we
savings.
prefer it's used for affordable housing in some form, whether it's us or even the housing authority for work that they might need long term, but not that the buy down for affordable housing going to mass work grant matching wouldn't be something we'd want to see.
One of the things that I feel a need for is a benchmark for what the appropriate market price is, or the range of market prices are to buy an affordable unit. I.e., on the Lyman Street project, we bought some affordable units.
Yes.
Probably if we talk to MHP, they are aware of our other communities who have accepted buy downs, and we could get some statistics on what's the range and what's the average and what's the typical value of the sale of the, I'm going to call it the sale of an affordable unit. That's not the right terminology, but
Yeah. So I actually had spoken to MHP about this. They don't have that data on buy downs because that's generally done by planning boards
okay.
or planning departments in the city structure, and there's no requirement or consistent. There's no reporting requirement, so they would actually have to, call every city and town and ask, and it could be a good research project for them. I do know that what they do calculate is that right now the total subsidy cost, which includes cash subsidies and other mitigation or consideration to create a new affordable unit, averages around $300,000 per unit.
That's
And
the-
that conversion of existing units is somewhat less than that, and they've seen numbers anywhere from 100,000 to 200,000. The feedback was our buy downs, our subsidies at 18, at the Lyman Street project and on Connector Road, they said you got a really good deal. Was their feedback but they don't collect and have a lot of hard data on that yet.
Within the community, we have over the last 10 years done a variety of buy downs. And we could look at, we did a buy down over on Chauncey Lake, and we've done a subsidy on Baylor Avenue, and we've done Connector. We have Connector Road. We have.
Yeah.
We could get those statistics together and say,
Yeah,
hey,
we can pull that together. and share.
one of the things I believe would be appropriate would be to provide the planning board some background on what our experience has been. We might, because the Chauncey Lake stuff is so old, it's like at least 10 years old now. We may need to do some kind of back of the envelope adjustment for construction cost increases or something like that. But just because, again, we're just trying to get, here's some examples of what the market, here's what it's going to cost you if you want to go off and replace these units that you would have gotten under the zoning that you enacted. Here's at least the range and the typical values that we're experiencing.
And the planning department did some of that work in the creation of the inclusionary zoning,
Yep, so good.
which is why the formula for buy down in the bylaw is what it is.
Right. Yeah.
And so,
So if we could pull that, we probably get that, I'm willing to work with somebody if need be to get that in the form of benchmarks.
okay.
It would be about.
Yeah, we can,
We might also contact our we have a list of, can't remember how many, 10 or 15 benchmark communities that the select board has used for a number of years. We might at least be able to contact those benchmark communities, their planning directors, and say, gee, what numbers are you using in either your inclusionary zoning or your actual experience?
So there's a
Just to
mass
understand.
planners listserv that we could put out, has anybody had any recent, I mean, I don't know if Kristen has access to that, yeah, where we could put out a request to any recent buy down and, give us the details on those so we can see what, I mean, it might be good information to have.
Yeah, it's
Whether
good information to have.
Information we want to have or not, I don't know.
As the planning board goes forward, I mean, you would think they would want to stay within the range and close to the median or close to what we've seen in the past. It may well be that the developer can explain exactly why, as a business issue, it makes it unaffordable for any developer to do work in the town. At this point, we know this developer's saying, for me as a developer, it's unaffordable for me to follow your bylaws. Well, it may just be that developer isn't sophisticated enough or has expectations that are higher, or I don't know. But there are other developers in the world. We don't want to be in a position where the Westborough community locks out developers from developing in our community. So if we sort of understand what's a competitive position compared to other places where the developer could do development, that's a business issue. You can analyze it financially. It's a nice issue of microeconomics. I'd be real comfortable going forward on that basis.
Yeah, currently, right now, to do a buy down, of a unit, sort of average at the 70% is about a little under 200,000.
It's kind of the ballpark.
Yeah, and I think that's similar.
Anecdotally,
How
that
how
sounds
many
like the kind
units
of
did we
numbers.
buy at Lyman Street? What, six?
6.
Yeah, and it was 750,000, so that comes up to, what, 120,000 plus each. That's, was a good deal.
But it's a good deal
Yes.
in the actual units. It was also a good deal because of the SHI.
Oh, well, yeah, but
It
just,
added 140 units.
just the
So-
ability to add
SHI.
more units, more affordable units. Like if we could somehow buy affordable units at $150,000, our job would be extremely easy.
Yeah, I mean,
We're just-
one way of viewing our job is to deliver the maximum number of affordable units for this community with the funds that the community makes available to us. I mean, if I were to just kind of, hey, what's our business model?
Right.
We got some money to spend for the purposes of providing affordable housing, the whole range, and we want to provide the most amount
Okay.
where the percentages and the income distributions are relatively matched to the community need. That's our job,
Yeah,
So-
that's the role of the trust.
right?
Yeah.
So that's the role of the trust.
So we're in the partnership committee right
Yeah.
now.
Partnership meeting
But
right
I just had another question. Are we still able to maintain local preference on those? What,
Yeah. Well,
Yes. So you can,
I'm just curious.
affordable units, you can have local preference. The rule is up to 70% of the units can have local preference. So you can't do it for single unit projects, but any other project, you could ask the
Okay.
HLC to approve a local preference.
But
if I
not
remember
for the
correctly,
moderate.
That's for first.
But not for
occupancy.
the moderate, for the SHI.
And that's for first occupancy. It doesn't
No,
become a deed restriction.
For rentals, it can be structured that you identify folks who qualify for local preference.
Okay.
And when the unit becomes available, if any are on the list, they go first.
Okay.
If not, it goes. So you don't hold a unit. You don't leave a unit
You do
vacant.
empty.
But you do.
If there's no
you
one
have a-
local, but if someone is local, they're first off the wait list.
Okay.
And what we've done, for example, what we've done for 25 connector and 18 linemen is part of the subsidy agreement is should they request assistance, the trust has agreed to assist in helping them maintain the wait list. And so we would market it, we could track names and help them know that when a unit, if they get a notice for a tenant that they're leaving, we could say, yes, there are people on the wait list that qualify for local preference and help them manage that process.
Okay, great. I just would like that opportunity in this project as well. So,
Yeah, that's,
Any questions? So in December, we'll have more detail on this. We'll have potentially a bigger discussion. I'll talk to Kristen to see if we can ask to see if the developers want to come in. But I think first we'll get the submission out to everyone and some information about the other discussions and things that have happened for that conversation. So on that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn
So moved.
the Housing Partnership Committee.
Right, so moved.
second.
All in favor? Motion passes 6-0. So now we are back into the meeting of the trust, and the next item is HB Cottages. I'm actually going to start a slideshow. So we had our, it was back in September. We had our first public engagement session. It was extremely well attended, which we appreciate. Since then, for people who are interested, we've been building an email contact list, and we have that. So we can start using that to help communicate what we're doing on. And I'll start off by setting the stage of where we are in the process. Okay, because there are a lot of concerns. We've gotten feedback that's been sent to us by email, but to also other boards and committees. This project is not before the town in any way. It's not before any other board or committee, and we're quite a ways from being there. Where we are right now is coming up with the requirements, the issues and concerns, so that we can build the RFP and have those issues and concerns, limitations, guidance that goes in the RFP, so that when we go out, what we go out to bid with, and we ask developers to come back with construction, development, and subsidy requirements and their costs to actually do the development, that the plan, the scope of the plan, the nature, other aspects of it are generally acceptable to the communities where these developments are going to sit, as well as able to meet the needs we want and our goals as a housing trust in developing additional affordable units. And so this is, again, the typical process, as we've seen with the Route 9 project, is the developer does all this work. There's a lot of work behind the scenes. It hits the agenda for the planning board, and boom, that's pretty much the first time people know the details. You have a reaction, and you're now dealing with all of the concerns at that point. Because our process here is we set requirements and preferences that we want in an RFP. That RFP gets issued to developers. They come back. We set evaluation criteria. The developer that best meets those evaluation criteria, if there is one that's acceptable to us, gets awarded the bid. The property transfers to that developer. That developer then takes the concept, the restrictions and guidelines and everything they agreed to by bidding on the RFP, and they create the final plan, or their plan, their budget, how it's going to work. At that point, they start going before boards and committees. Because this would be done under a comprehensive permit, there's a process with the local initiative program and local action unit program that the developer has to do before starting the permit process, before the boards and committees. We know that there are conservation issues, there are historic commission issues, there are design issues. The developer, with support from us, will go before those committees, address those issues and concerns, so that when they apply for the permit, those have been largely addressed. And if there are any specific needs or variances beyond just what we're looking for in density for the 40B, that those get identified for it. The recommendation from MHP is it's at that point, the Conservation Commission would create their orders of condition, their restrictions. The Design Review Board will put their limits on it. There's no firm requirement with the Historical Commission, but we've committed to go before the Historical Commission for guidance, because it is a property that's within, well, the property is not itself on the Registry of Historic, it's a contributing property in a district. And we want to maintain that compliance and look and feel and respect that in no uncertain terms. And also going to the Planning Board, even though they're not the permitting authority, it's if you were the permitting authority, is this acceptable to you? And if not, what conditions would you recommend to the Zoning Board of Appeals? So that when the project goes to permitting for the ZBA, all of that information is brought forward. And the ZBA will see that, oh, there has been a LIP negotiation with the community for the friendly 40B component. They've worked with conservation design. The Planning Board approves it, but has these issues and concerns that we should consider. And then you go through it. What you end up there is, therefore, by the time the developer gets to the zoning board for the permit, the community engagement has already happened, first on what the scope, the general scope and everything, but also there have been public meetings and that the community can hear and participate in on all of the specific aspects of the project as well. And that's all taken into consideration. And so it doesn't mean there won't be people who go to the ZBA and still have issues with the project. That's fine. It's the right. If you do, you should do it. But it just gives the ZBA a very full picture on what the project is and what the issues and concerns are, so they can decide along their way. Because it's a friendly 40B, which means Westborough is not below the 10% threshold. The ZBA decision is effectively final in that there's no appeal process to the state, to the Housing Appeals Commission. Okay, and that's the big difference between a hostile 40B, which is if the developer doesn't like what the ZBA says, there's a state commission they can go to that generally rules in favor of the developers because its goal is to get projects approved, even though it's an appeals process. And so we're a long way. So people have asked me about the timing of this. Right now, based on the feedback we've got some major rework to do on the concepts, which will be work with the designer architect firm we're working with. There's some civic concerns around the project. We need to do some more research and planning. We would then, in my opinion, we should have another public engagement. We should share that information, another public engagement, get more rounds of feedback, and decide if at that point we're ready to start actually crafting the RFP. As we have with our other projects, we will craft the RFP in public session, and we can have meetings with the community about the specifics of the RFP and get their input. I'm happy for people to read it and say, hey, you have this as a preference, can we make it a requirement, and provide feedback on that. We can take that into consideration as we finalize the document and go. I don't expect we would have an RFP ready till sometime spring, at the earliest, April, May, potentially even June. The RFP process is 60 to 90 days, depending how we run it. We then have to make the decision, and then the developer has to start to do the work with the individual boards and committees. We are at least a year, if not longer, before anything goes and the permitting process formally starts with the ZBA. And so there's a lot of time, and I want to emphasize this, there's a lot of time and a lot of opportunities for the community and the neighbors and the abutters and the public in general to review and understand what's happening, where we are in the project, the decisions we're making, what it might come to be, and provide their input, their feedback for consideration as we move forward. Because it's a concern of ours. If we weren't concerned about community input, we wouldn't have had the meeting, we wouldn't have the email list. And we wouldn't see the level of engagement we have right now, which, and the fact that the engagement has been highly critical, I actually appreciate, because it lets us know, hey, we were a little off, okay, we were a little off base, and some of the members of the community say a lot off base, and that's fine and that's fair. So we'll take that feedback and we'll do it. So along those lines, to summarize, we'll start with High Street Extension. There weren't as many people in attendance from the High Street Extension neighborhood, but there were some very specific and some general concerns raised, which are all legitimate concerns. The biggest concern is the density. 5 buildings, would that be 5 units? Would it be more units than that if some were ended up being duplexes? The neighborhood concerns were about traffic volume and safety. It is a narrower road. There is no sidewalk. It's a dead end. There are children, they're elderly on the street. They don't really have a speed problem on the road, is what we've heard, but they're concerned about that, and they're concerned about an increase in traffic and safety because kids walking between homes to go visit friends are in the street, kids are riding their bike and playing in the street. And so traffic volume and safety is a concern. The other issues were really around construction noise. There were some concerns with the design and light pollution potentially, and how much deforestation of that property would happen. So we'll want to consider that as well. But some significant issues, I think, were raised around construction with noise and, more importantly, vibration. Given that we know there's rock and ledge, the question was, are you going to blast? Are you going to be jackhammering? Is this going to damage foundations in neighboring homes? And so when I think about what we might want to do for the concept is to ask Waterman Design, who we've been using on the project for, right now our concepts are all 5 buildings or more. We brought forth the 5 building concept. I guess I would be interested in seeing a 4 building concept, either 4 single family homes, because right now they're all 5 single family homes, or 3 plus 1 duplex, which would be a slightly larger footprint. Is there any way to reduce pavement? Ed had suggested to me one-on-one that at Beach Street we could look at tandem parking, where you have a single car width driveway that goes next to the property.
Street
and
or
then Street on Beach Street. We
High
could do
Street.
that
High Street.
for Beach Street, but we could look at a similar concept there
So they suggested it again.
for
Okay,
Beach
sorry.
Street, but maybe for High Street, we look at that as well to eliminate having the giant parking lot in the center.
Okay.
And go back to also Waterman Design to give us some narrative on assuming slab on grade. What are we looking at as far as ground prep? I know we've got a hole to fill, but are we looking at blasting? Are we looking at digging out the rocks and moving them to fill the hole and getting, I don't know what's involved, Hank, ask you.
I mean, Waterman can have a geotechnical people look at the the available data. It did not appear to me as though there's likely to be ledge there. Folks have said that maybe people dumped rocks in there. Well, if they dump rocks, you pull them out with an excavator. I mean, again, Waterman can tell us whether there'd be a difference in the disruption for going. You got to go 4 foot deep for slab on grade anyway.
Right.
And you go for a basement, you go 8 foot deep. The other side is that if you go with full basements, you don't have to bring in as much fill because you use the excavation to fill the hole.
Right.
So I mean, Waterman can help us with what's the least intrusive, what's the risk on the geotechnical side.
Right. And if they have a sense of what was dumped,
Yeah, well,
because
yeah. I mean,
I'm aware of another development that filled property with rock excavation, and they were using the giant Caterpillar rock trucks. The boulders were 10, 12 feet in diameter.
Yeah.
If
they could
that's in the way of the frost wall or foundation wall, then you're either jackhammering it or you're blasting it or you're digging it out, moving it again.
Right.
The question is,
They can advise us whether they need to go in and do test pits.
yeah,
But they may need to do test pits.
Versatility.
They either have on staff or can get the right geotechnical consulting people.
I think, I mean, the other thing that they would have to consider also is that for stormwater, you know, do we have enough impermeable or permeable rather, and appropriate level of perking so that we don't need to install any kind of stormwater, you know, retention ourselves.
You'll have to design and build and install a stormwater retention facility. You'll end up putting stormwater retention tanks because the stormwater regulations require you to manage the dissipation into the ground.
Right.
So they'll have to put tanks and everything in there, and they know that.
Well, that's my question. Do they have to?
Yeah, they're gonna have to,
Why?
because you have to control the rate at which the water goes into the ground.
But
And it's gonna come off the roofs of the houses.
No,
And that
no, I
partic-
understand all that, but why? Is it because the density would provide more impermeable? That's your assumption?
No,
Lan? If you put one house there, one small house on that lot, would you have to do a stormwater?
yeah, but it'd be a lot easier.
So I feel like getting way ahead of ourselves on those questions.
Yeah, we may be.
So maybe for today's purpose, we just want to talk about the concept changes, because you know, we're not going to determine what is compliant with stormwater regulations. That's going to be probably the town engineering department. So I just don't see the point of spending our time on that right now.
but in the current design has stormwater, the current 5-unit designs all had some stormwater retention. So the question would be, if we lower the 4 buildings and have less pavement for, you know, the different layout, would we still need it or not? They can provide an initial assessment, but again, it would come down to the town engineer at some point. And the requirement there, once we have a developer and we get into final, you know, there's an actual design of what would be built there, not just a concept. So any questions, or, I mean, I guess I'm asking for feedback on the concept. Does this seem reasonable for Waterman to work on and come back with a lower density solution?
Yes, I think that's the case. I think we should also have them, because of some of the other concerns, to really verify the nature of the soil, any issues with ledge, et cetera, just to make sure that, you know, what is buildable and how much disruption needs to be done. Would they envision having to take out boulders, and would that be a significant cost, et cetera?
And if the answer is you don't have anything to worry about with respect to blasting and jackhammering and neighboring foundations, that would certainly put the neighbors
Correct.
at ease and put us at ease too. It also lowers the scope of the project
Right.
from a financial standpoint quite a bit. Okay.
And any kind of developer would want to know that anyhow.
Okay.
When they come back with an RP, when we do an RP, we would be able to give them those findings and, you know, hopefully their costs or their bid would be able to realize savings
Okay.
from site prep.
Okay. So then on to the feedback from Beach Street.
Can I just go back to,
Oh, sure.
sorry.
Go.
The lowest density that we proposed for High Street was 5.
Correct.
What was the highest density?
5 units.
Highest density, I think, was like 8.
No,
it
the
was-
highest density, but we did not bring that forward to,
So we only proposed 5.
yeah, we had 2 different layouts of 5 units.
Okay.
But we had up to 8 at one point.
We had update at one point.
Yeah.
But 5 units was, we sort of ruled out the 8 units, the 7 and 8 unit options.
Right.
Before the public meeting, so.
Okay. So I'm very much on board on asking Waterman to redesign with lower density, but is 4 buildings still, like, is that meeting the needs of the request of the public? I'm just asking, like, could we also ask for a 3 design? Like a two building, three building design.
You could look at 4 singles or 3 duplexes, or
Okay.
2 duplexes and a single, or, I mean, I wouldn't even talk about bedrooms, talk about footprint size. You know, you want 1,000 square foot footprint, you want a 500 square foot footprint, I mean, because it's gonna be 2 stories, so your minimum's a 500 square foot, 2 stories, that's 1,000, that's a 1-bedroom house, basically, maybe 2-bedroom. A 3 to 4 bedroom house is 1,400 square feet. So you could look at footprint sizes and then figure out, how many footprints are you willing to fit? That's how many buildings, and you can either split them in half and make them 2 houses in a building, or,
Well, I'm just thinking
Right.
like going from 5 to 4 is lower, right?
Right.
yep.
But it's not significantly lower. So I'm just asking, can we also ask for a 3 building option? Just
Sure.
3 buildings?
Sure. Or, I mean, we could ask for 3 buildings, and we could also say 2 duplexes.
Yeah,
I think, all right, I think the way to look at it, though, is, yeah, footprints count, but it's number of bedrooms particularly.
Yeah.
Okay, how many bedrooms are we going to be putting in there? Whether it's, and obviously, if it's going to be affordable, we need to keep the number down. We're not building 4-bedroom units, probably 2, maybe 3, okay? It also, I think, other concerns are if you build a single family, if you want to have senior kind of accessibility, like ADA
Yeah.
or something, that's going to be a 1-story, but probably maybe 2 feet. So your footprints are going to change depending upon what choices you have to meet what we consider the needs. Like duplexes don't need, because they're 2-story, don't need as much of a footprint,
Yeah.
but they're going to provide more bedrooms.
Yeah.
So the question is the density an issue of number of buildings, or is it number of people, which would be accommodated?
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
The answer is both. So
right.
the issue, the number of buildings gets into the physical density and view and how it looks in the neighborhood.
Yes.
And how it fits and feels in the neighborhood. The number of units across those buildings gets into the number of sales points, the number of units on SHI, the inventory and the level of need we're able to meet, and level of demand. And then the number of bedrooms relates to the number of people.
Right.
And the human density.
traffic.
And traffic and things of that nature. And so we sort of need options, for all 3. If you say, hypothetically, we standard on 2 bedrooms, and you want them in the 1,200 square foot range, which is a reasonable size for a 2-bedroom, and it's above the minimum square footage requirement from the state for affordability, then a 2-bedroom duplex has a larger physical footprint than, a single family unit that's 2 bedrooms, that's 2 stories, right? And the other consideration is if we wanted one of these units, High Street, to be senior or fully ADA development, then you want, it could still be 2-story, but you'd want master bedroom,
Right.
first floor layout. And, a caregiver, a family member bedroom could be on the 2nd floor, or it could be all 1 level. Like for ADA compliance, you might want all 1 level, which is a larger physical footprint, but it could be a 1-story building.
Yeah.
And so I think and again, we're not looking for final design, we're looking for concepts so people get a sense of
Right.
what they prefer, so we can build that into the RFP and say, these are references. We're not saying build this, but these are references to what's acceptable to the community. Having an option with 2 duplexes and a 3-building option,
Yeah.
where maybe one is single floor, fully ADA compatible, and the others are either single family or duplex. I mean, I'd like to see 4 units here, just because
Which could be 2 duplexes.
If we can get 4 here and 6 at Beach Street, that sort of hits that 10-unit threshold for financing and support. Mark?
So I do think we need to investigate different options, but we also have to keep in mind what we're trying to accomplish. Like 2 duplexes might be okay from the standpoint of block coverage, but 2 duplexes is not going to be, it's probably going to attract families, right? And do we just want 4 families moving in there? Or do we want some senior housing options in there as well, which would be, lend itself to, well, 1 building or 1-story living, whether it's, and you could do an attached family. I mean, you can do an attached 1-story building, but it's not as, I would prefer to see a mixture there of maybe 1 ADA compliant, 1, and then 2, and then a duplex. Because to be honest with you, if you tell somebody 1,000 square foot, I just did a duplex that was 32 by 32, 1,024 square feet, and it was 3-bedroom units. So you're going to get families in there.
Well, yeah,
You're gonna get, yeah,
And I'm good with that because this is a family town, but I would like to see some opportunities
Right.
in both of these locations
Right.
for a mixture of,
right, but duplex
Potential
doesn't necessarily
occupants.
mean multi-story townhome. So you can have a fully ADA
sure,
or a senior unit, single floor living on the first floor of a building and have a second unit on the second floor.
right, but your lot coverage is going to be higher
But
if it's a
your lot
1-story.
coverage. So I
Yeah.
think I think this is a sit-down conversation with a subset of us, the working group and Waterman Design, to saying, okay, we have a 5-building, 5-unit design. If we went down to 4, 3, or 2 buildings where we want 4 or 5, we want 4, 3, and 2 buildings, we want 4 or 5 units. We would like 1 unit to be senior appropriate or fully ADA compliant. What would you suggest, and have them come back and say, oh, we could do 2 duplexes that are 2 flats. Your ADA unit can be the first, or senior units can be on the first floor, family units on the second. And they can come back and say, we'll do these 3 designs, and we can say yes or no.
But we also, oh, sorry, Hank, go ahead.
You need to give the developer some freedom. You need to give them a minimum and a maximum and let them figure out what works for them. 'Cause
Understood.
they have to market the property, they have to finance it, they got lots of things they have to do. I mean, what's the minimum? And the minimum and maximum really ends up being driven by economics, what they can afford to build and what we can afford to subsidize.
Right. So the RFP might say the minimum is two duplexes. The maximum is 4 buildings, 6 units.
Well, yeah, hey, we
And-
want a minimum of 2 units and a maximum of 6 units. And we want
Right.
at least 1 ADA compliant unit. And let them, give them mins and maxes and let them figure out how they want to accomplish that. I mean, we probably want, for us to understand what the mins and maxes mean, we probably want some concepts.
Right.
But you don't want to try and tell the developer.
No, agreed. And the concept work is for us to have guidance in creating an RFP. It's also for the neighborhood and the community
Sure.
to understand the range of what might happen.
Right.
So the other question I had on this is, as we lower the density, the cost to the trust, the subsidy goes up.
That's right.
Do we,
no,
well, do we allow for one of the units to be market rate?
That'll be a decision when we have the guidelines and we expect what we need.
Okay.
And again, that's when you do the RFP can be written that they have to be 100% affordable. Or the RFP can be written saying that, the top of the scale is 100% affordable. Acceptable is 1 market rate or X percent of units market rate. And not acceptable is more than X percent of market rate. And that comes into how we craft the RFP.
Okay, so we're a ways away from there.
And because that's going to come into other available funding beyond the trust at the time the developer starts going after their plans.
I mean, the back of the envelope numbers indicate that we're going to end up having to do a mix, or else it'll become total. You'll be putting $250,000, $300,000 subsidies out there, which are just not sustainable.
Well, not,
But
yeah.
are within, but are
mean,
typical.
Again, we have limited availability of funds too.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't always feel that way, but.
I would, yeah, I would
It-
prefer the
it is,
fund,
right?
But
I
again-
would
but
prefer the
again-
trust break even at the very, if possible.
That somewhere along the line, the trust's gonna have to come up with some guidelines. How much are we willing to spend to buy an affordable unit?
Right.
Yeah, and you
And,
talked about that earlier.
Yeah,
subs-
I mean,
it's
that's
subsidized,
kind of
right.
a basic.
but again, the money comes, you need more of a plan before you can address the money, because there's grants, state, not much federal these days, given the current administration, but there's also financing, right? So for mass housing and HUD, we're considered a small community because we're under 50,000 people. So there are loan programs that could effectively subsidize, because of 0% interest and no amortization, meaning no out-of-pocket money for as long as 40 years, the financial impact that on the planning of the project is tens of thousands of dollars per unit. And so until you have a sense of what funding might be is available and how it all fits together, we won't know the subsidy requirement and whether or not market rate. I do suspect market rate's likely. To me, it's not a given because we're so far away from even understanding
That's
the funding.
fine, that's
And
fine.
the funding picture 2 years from now or a year and a half from now at the state and federal level could be different than it is right now as well.
Okay,
Okay.
understood.
So we'll talk about 4, 3, and 2 building options, a range of 4 to 6 units, 1 senior, 1 or 2 senior and ADA.
And
And-
what I'd suggest is with WDA, I mean, almost like to have it where, they've drawn out very detailed plans, exact parking spaces, things like that. I think it would be helpful if there's almost like a real basic, almost where you could say, you have your plot, and then you say, well, we could put buildings here that would put driveways here or something, like do something where we don't need to go the full 9 yards to get some views of the concepts and what it would look like. In other words, almost have the plot and have pieces of paper that you could say, okay, if we want to do a duplex, we could do it and it would look like this. We would need this much, way, we would have a turnaround, whatever. But you can do some of that, not by having them go the whole 9, as I say, the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
And then, you eliminate a bunch of stuff because there are almost infinite possibilities as you
Right.
get into some of this. So.
And again, we're looking for concepts, right? What you're saying is have it
Yeah,
be more
yeah.
conceptual. That's fine. I agree. But
Then
we
a
can
final
do that.
plan.
Okay. Are we comfortable with that guidance to WDA?
Yes, I think my point here is that we are trying to respond to community feedback.
Yes.
So we would like some more concepts that include lower density I think that means a couple of different ways.
Right.
And so I like Ed's idea of like actually doing this more in a physical way as opposed to a paper way. Like it would be kind of fun to put down like a map and like to put little Lego buildings or whatever. Like, I mean, I'm sort of teasing about this, but I'm also at the same time, like, that's what we want to really think about here is like, what does the community want? And what also is affordable to us and what it is that we're trying to meet our goals here. So I just think explaining that to WDA in terms of like, we need a little bit more.
Maybe a community workshop.
Yes.
Okay. We'll talk to them about that. I think that's a good idea. Let's see if we can figure out how to do that.
Okay.
One point.
Yeah.
When we say community, we have 2 communities that we're serving.
We would need-
We have to be conscious of the immediate neighborhood
Right.
community. But the town has also said, you're set up to develop affordable housing
Yep.
Right.
because we need that.
Yep.
And, we need to balance.
Yep.
So, you you're not going to please everybody.
Right.
We know that. And at some point, we may just say, no, we need to build this. The town has voted in all kinds of master plans, housing production, just the fact that they unanimously set up this trust.
Right. Well, I think that
So
100%, Ed, and that's where I think I heard from the community at that meeting that they were not opposed to affordable housing in their neighborhoods.
Right.
What I heard was, this just seems like a lot, and this is a big change for us, and
Right.
we would like some more input into this process. So I think the idea of a workshop with Waterman, where we get folks in here and we start to play around and we say, here are the parameters. We, as the Affordable Housing Trust, we own this property and we would like to, we need to build affordable housing here per the community's request, right? And the
town's request.
The town's request. And the parameters of that are such that if we can build 10 units on these two different properties, we get a certain leverage with financing. Outside of that, it becomes a much more cost-heavy production. And so how can we build 10 units on these two properties that meets the local community's needs? And how can we play with that to what that looks like?
Right.
So I think that that would be an interesting and community-based way to hear people's feedback and have it not be in the offices of a design firm, but have it be in the hands of the community and us. Like, we could be a part of that process too. It feels very removed to have to kind of keep having this meeting here with all of us,
right.
Sending this information to them via email or phone or whatever, however it is we're communicating to them, and then having them come back to present to us. I mean, I know it's a very formal process and I get that, but like, I also feel like, why not do something a little bit different here?
Okay.
Mark's had his hand raised.
Yes.
Yeah, so just to respond to that, Ed, I agree that our mission is to create affordable units, but this town is over the SHI threshold. While these are 40B projects, they are friendly 40B projects. A developer doing an unfriendly 40B can tell the neighbors, go pound sand.
Right.
We're not in that position, right?
Nor do we want
We
it.
want to form a consensus and
Right.
And have neighborhood support for this.
So doing a tabletop workshop would be helpful.
Yeah.
I think we all have different ways of looking at these projects. Some people can look at 2D rendering and say, oh yeah, I know what that's going to look like when it's built. And some people need 3D or Legos or whatever. I mean, I love the idea of a community workshop. Again, it's trying to build a general consensus. We're not going to make everybody happy. There's going to be
Understood.
people
Yeah.
who say, no, you should have side-by-side parking instead of tandem parking, right? Like, it doesn't make sense to do tandem parking. And, there's always going to be differences of opinion,
Right.
right?
So, but we can gather that, information and have chance for broader input with the community session. So we'll do that. For sake of time, we're going to move on to Beach Street.
Okay, I want to make though one more point, because it was brought up by Mark. Yes, we are over our 10%, but that's only because we've gotten credit for the full units, where we have 25% in some cases.
Right.
Okay, our actual percentage of affordable units is 5+%.
I'm all for creating more,
Right.
right? But within the constraints of zoning. And
I
No,
understand
we-
that.
Understood.
But just so the public
Okay. That's-
also
we need
realizes.
to move forward because we're
Yeah.
woefully behind here. So Beach Street, I won't go into details of concerns. There are many, they're legitimate. The biggest obviously all relates to density. And so some conceptual changes, I'm gonna go from the bottom of the list to the top. One is the concern about, we talked about preservation of some of some of the historic trees. Waterman did number the trees, so we have an inventory. The question that came back though is, but once you get into construction, are trees healthy? Are you gonna have to take them down, or do you need to take some down? Are they risk of dying because of roots and where you're digging? And so I think it'd be appropriate for us, and I think we could talk to the DPW and see if They have time for their arborist to provide some input, to give a sense of, if we do this type of development, what actually would need to happen to trees. Like which ones can definitely stay, which ones are at risk. And even then, is there any tree maintenance we should be doing now? Et cetera, to keep it healthy. And I'd start with talking to Director Payant and see if the tree division, because we're an agent of the town
Okay.
and it's town-owned property. The next was reduce pavement. Clearly, if we're reducing density, that's some of it. The idea of side tandem parking is an option, is doable. There are other affordable properties in town that have tandem parking set up in some of the older developments. So it's not atypical. There are communities that have tandem parking at market rate homes, et cetera, and some in that neighborhood as well. There was a specific request for the side neighbor, that buildings not be closer than the current houses. And so it's a minor shift in location. And then we get to density. And, our plans that we brought forth had 4 or 5 buildings. The thought would be to go down to, obviously, if we're having 4 units on High Street, we'd want 6 at Beach Street if we can. So my thought of concept changes would be 3 duplexes, or 4 duplex buildings, see how that might fit visually, and density wise, and then looking at some mix where we'd have 2 or 3 single family homes and 2 duplexes, probably 2 and 2, to go down from the 5 and 6 building options we talked about in the public meeting down to 3 or 4 buildings with density, a number of units between 6 and 8. And again,
Question.
we can include senior and ADA components.
I just wanted to get a sort of a feel, probably, well, anybody. If we realize, that we probably need at least a single family, a market rate home, let's say a 3-bedroom market rate to make some of the numbers work. I would assume that would have to be full basement to make it marketable.
Not necessarily.
More marketable?
More marks.
Like more market, full basement. Correct.
The
But on the other hand, we got to be careful because when you do mixed development like that, EOHLC
Right.
wants the amenities for all the buildings to be similar.
Oh, yes,
So,
no,
I don't know how that relates to basements or not, but
right. If we were going to build 2 single family, one marketable, the other affordable, they have to be the same.
Well, they have to appear the
Same-
same visually. I can attest to a project in Uxbridge or Northbridge, I forget which, where the affordable units do not have basements, and the market rates do.
Oh,
Yeah. And that was approved.
okay, so
that's,
and there could be differences in finish and appliance and things of that nature. But
So I
Question
guess,
on- oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, we're considering duplexes, but are we not considering like a row, like 4 townhomes, and then 2 single families?
when you go, again, it's worth considering, but when you go beyond 2, you increase the construction requirements, the code requirements. If you have 3 or more, you've got to put sprinklers in.
row houses.
It's my understanding, and row houses, my understanding is that the fire codes require that. We could
Yeah,
double
that
check
may
that.
be a newer code.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
I know
but
that.
it was also,
One concern, can I respond to
Yeah.
the
Go
row house?
ahead.
One concern that we heard from people on Cottage Street, which is, at the back end, and the only place, if we did grow 3 or 4, would be in that back strip, was that they were concerned that we were putting all the buildings
In the back.
backing up to them, and that they would bear more of the noise and other issues. So,
I think this is where we get, again,
yeah,
we do a
need
community
to, right, get into,
workshop, and you could invite whoever would be there to know about code, right? Like I know nothing about code, but like they could be there to say to us, well, you're going to have sprinklers or whatever. Maybe we don't need to get into that level of detail if the community workshop, but it's something to kind of think about.
So my point though is that if we go through this concept process and we go out with an RFP that says our ranking would be, we'd prefer for townhomes, well, that would be factored into the RFP, and the developer would understand whether or not they need to put sprinklers or not.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
That's where you get, again, it gets back into, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves on the nitty gritty, because we're really at a conceptual
Right.
stage.
We're at a conceptual stage, but we need enough concept so that the community's generally consensus comfortable with what's happening.
Right.
And we have a way forward to meet our goals in developing the affordable units.
If we look at the statistics of the existing housing in the Beach Street, Cottage Street development area, the typical home is on a 1/4 acre lot. That's 4
No,
units per
eighth
acre.
of it.
I'm sorry. The typical home is on 1/8 of an acre, and 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms. Let's use the 1/8 of an acre. We got 1.2 acres. So that's like 10 units.
Right,
So-
well, it's,
so
it,
again,
but
we're-
it's not,
we're
it's not.
looking- we're looking at
before
going,
we-
well-
Before we get too far down, the current homes are, yes, 1/8 of an acre, 3 bedrooms, some 4 bedrooms. But when we look at building on our land, those properties don't include access, which means the street. We have to build the driveway, which is effectively a street. So the actual acreage we have that you'd say, if we said how many 1/8 of an acre parcels we could get, we're probably 4 to 6 because of the land lost for the access road.
Yeah, I understand. Where I'm trying to go to is, if you look at typical single-family homes in Westborough, it's not an acre. In fact, many of them.
Well, yeah, outside of downtown.
The typical home in Westborough is probably on 1.5 acres. Okay, and we can't, if we start comparing our density to the typical Westborough, we're gonna build one house on this lot. If we compare our density to the existing density in the neighborhood, and both of the neighborhoods are very similar, building 4 or 5 3-bedroom homes on that would not be out of line with the existing density in the neighborhood. We're not increasing the average density in the neighborhood. We're actually at a lower density, and the neighbors don't understand that. They don't see that.
Well,
But we
Because
can,
that's the way the world.
we can,
But we
absolutely, in the workshop, we can share that information, but also when we talk about density on the land, if 40% of the space is needed for the access way, then we're not, at 1.2 acres, we're not 5/8, we don't have 9 1/8 hour, we have 4 or 5, maybe 6.
Yeah.
And so we can address that and do it.
Yeah, I mean, on that, given the neighborhood, if we put somewhere between 3 and 5 buildings on that lot,
Right.
that's fantastic.
Right.
And buildings roughly of the same footprint size as what's in the neighborhood, that's, to me, that would be matching the neighborhood characteristics. And then the architecture you can diddle with.
Right, no, agreed, so.
And as far as paving and things of that sort, I mean, your 2 choices are, you either park adjacent to the home, in which case you got to build development roads, or you park adjacent to the street and you have a big parking lot on the street. That's really the 2 options. We've looked at parking adjacent to the street. We don't like it.
No, agreed,
So-
agreed.
so
And
then
there's,
if
but
you-
there are different ways to have parking adjacent to the home
Right.
that manage the look and feel of how the
Again,
property is
I
built.
mean, in a guideline to Waterman, if we say, hey, we don't want parking adjacent to the street, we want parking reasonably close to the home. The other question is, do we want to follow the parking guideline of 2 parking units per house plus a percentage for visitors? Or are we willing to go forward with a lower parking number? You reduce the parking number, you greatly reduce the amount of paving you put in.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is, once again,
This is all
doing a
for-
workshop.
This will all be good for the
a-
workshop.
You know, with this and looking at what winds up kind of making sense on all these criteria is a way forward, so.
I think that
that's
the conclusion should be we need to have a workshop.
We'll do a community, we'll
Because,
do,
because
one or
the
two
last time we
community-
went through all these conceptual stuff and
Right,
went
right.
to the community,
we got to
we
smack
learned
that.
that maybe our concept.
Right. So, okay.
That
We'll
we
have-
need to maybe get them involved in that
We'll
conceptual.
head in that
design.
direction.
So is Waterman the right firm to employ to do a workshop? Is
Good
that
question.
something that's within, I don't know.
The only reason I would say, I mean, Waterman's familiar with the site. I think it wouldn't make a lot of sense to switch at this point.
And they can, like on High Street, whatever they prepare for us to do the work, the tabletops, they can do things like delineate for High Street, they can delineate where the wetland boundary needs to be and deal with some of those considerations. So we'll reach out to Waterman to do that.
Yeah, we could ask them, have you done something like this?
I'm sure.
We
Okay,
did
let's-
one for the downtown, you know.
Okay.
There was, who led that? The downtown, you know, where
HGV,
we
yeah,
had
the
all the
consultant.
pieces and had
Yeah.
5 tables.
So we'll go, but there's a different consultant, but
Yeah.
and that specializes in downtown revitalization. Okay, so the other issue with Beach Street, Ed, you wanted to talk about
Yeah,
chimney stabilization and tree work.
Yeah, basically, there's 2 chimneys on the Beach Street house. One is in Oak, from just line of sight, looks okay, and I think that's the one that has been being used. The other one is probably an old one. It's sort of in a Jenga style right now, where if you pull one more brick out, because there are a number of bricks that are missing.
Okay,
Okay. So I want to get somebody to stabilize that, reduce it, you know, just so that it's no longer a danger, reduce liability of bricks falling off, on that. And then there's specifically, I know one tree that's right at the corner, you know, of Beach and the house on South Street. You know, the corner house that has a lot of dead limbs. So I want to get
okay. So
somebody in. to
we'll have
not
that conversation with the DPW to see if they can
That's
do it, if
fine.
not. And
But I just need some money to,
the chimney work, would you,
to authorize.
would you, is it stabilize it, or is it, should we just have them remove that part of the chimney and cap it?
I,
Because our intention is not to
probably
keep the
that.
house.
I
We
mean,
ought to ask somebody who's a chimney guy.
right.
chimney guy.
You gotta get somebody in.
Tell them clearly, we're gonna tear this building
Yeah.
down. All we're
Do
trying to
minimal.
do, all we're trying to do is manage the liability of somebody getting killed by a falling brick.
Right.
What do you think we should do? Should we take the top of the damn thing off?
Okay,
Or do we go in and put scaffolding around it so that it won't fall down?
so how
Well,
much
we
do
don't,
you
we don't
need
know
as
what
an
that,
allocation?
yeah, so how much do you think we need? 5,000?
Well, I said 5,000 because I
So I make
hope it would not
I
be
make a
close to
motion to authorize up to $5,000 to be spent on chimney repair or removal.
And tree work.
And the tree
And
work.
the
Or just
If
you know,
DPW can't do it, we'll cover it.
emergency maintenance on the building and grounds.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's
6
just
Beach
make it,
Street.
I make a motion
Excellent.
to spend up to 5,000 on emergency maintenance at Beach Street.
Second.
All in favor? 6-0, 6 being present.
And just another note, the insurance that we have, the insurance company, they had an inspector come and we both visited High Street and Beach Street. You know, he took pictures and things like that. No big red flags.
That's good.
You know, for that, although he did look and mention the chimney.
Right.
And I said,
Okay.
yes, we were going to need it.
Okay.
Deal with
Cool. Next up on the agenda, very simple. We had allocated $750,000 to bid on the property at 0 Lyman Street. I move we rescind that allocation to bid on the property since we did not win the bid.
Second.
All in favor? Excellent. Given time, we'll skip over the the next agenda item, the financial report, we'll leave time for that.
You can see it,
In
what's
December,
there.
we'll, and then a couple of things for issues and correspondence. Kristen? The property at 25 Connector Road sold. So now we have
Yeah.
a new property owner. And my understanding is they're already marketing the units at, as long-term rentals. Can we reach out to the new property owners and remind them of the commitment? See where they are? We've heard nothing about lottery or anything or publishing, the marketing of the affordable units. That should be happening. If they're already marketing market rate, they should already be marketing or have a plan to rent the affordable units.
Does our agreement run with the land?
Our agreement runs with the land in perpetuity.
So when the property sold, they did come in, the new owner, for a meeting with Jenny and Bill. And I stepped in just to go over the process of filling out the LAU application, making sure they understand the timelines, and all the requirements. Because we had gone over that with the previous owners and I didn't know how familiar they were. They've done all, other projects. They have a partner for, I don't know who they use, who the company is, but they've done this several times, so they were aware of the whole system. They weren't gonna wait. We explained how we don't want them to wait until they're ready for their occupancy to decide about the affordable component. So we did have that conversation. I can follow up with them
Okay.
in terms of the advertisement of the
Because we should,
units.
at this point, it should be identified which units will be the affordable units, so we know that the mix meets the requirements and things of that nature, so.
Yeah.
If you can pursue it and get an update, and if we need, more people to meet with them or whatever, we can make that happen. The second,
They need a building permit to start their construction work, right?
Right. I think it's the way they're going to go about the project. They're
Right,
trying
right.
to figure out because it's a situation where there's current people renting and they want to be able to keep that income and keep that going instead of just shut everything down and start the project over. So there's going to be one component where there's people living there and then one of the other buildings is going to get demoed and they're going to start doing the work on that. So they're still trying to figure that process out with the building commissioner.
but if they have non-short-term tenants in the building, then those affordable units should already be available on the market.
Okay.
So the cart might be a little bit before the horse. So we just need to get that moving ASAP.
Yeah, we might just want to remind the building commissioner that before he issues a building permit, need to make sure that the owner is complying with the agreement they have with the trust. That's at least a point of control
Yeah,
that the community can intervene if they need to.
okay. The next is regarding SHI. We have, in a follow-up to the public session for HB cottages, I had back and forth with a couple residents who had questions about SHI, how it's calculated. I've answered some of those, but I thought it would be good. We have Ed and last year had created a monitoring worksheet, and I went in and updated it, but there are a couple of questions about some actual numbers of what's built through 2024. If I could meet with you, Kristen, and we could figure out how to get those, how to just verify that those numbers are accurate, then we'd be able to update it and we could share that at our December meeting, so that people understand, because someone said, gee, if we're here and we do X project, we're going to be at 20% SHI. And it's like, well, actually the calculations don't work that way. Because what this does is it looks at our average non-affordable build every 10 years and projects out through 2050 where we'll be, based on, but accounts for all the projects we know of currently and how those impact it. And so it looks at the raw numbers, it looks at the impact of the 1830 Lyman and the 25 Connector Road projects long-term, and has a couple of best case, worst case scenarios for planning, high level predictive planning.
So it accounts for any expiring? I don't think there's.
It accounts, so the only units that, so there are some ownership units that if the resale's not managed properly, will stay on the SHI but no longer be sold affordable, which is an issue. We don't want that to happen. Based on the program that they were in from the 70s, we're currently on the SHI from EOHLC. The only development that has, if I'm remembering correctly, expiry is the housing on Beach Street. However, that property is owned residential, so it would be affordable under the Ardmore decision. And we now have very strong precedent for that type of requirement in our community, given our successful action
Yes.
against Northland. Yeah. And stuff like that. And so those are the only issues and correspondence I have. Is there anything else?
Just wanted to acknowledge the fact that you asked, I think maybe the two of us, to look at the Housing for Everyone initiative,
Yes.
to reapply
Yep.
for that, and that's due to November 24th.
Okay.
So
Should we get together and write a grant?
yeah,
Okay.
we don't need any approval from the trust to do that, right? We can just go ahead and, we've done this before.
Yeah. Well,
This is basically to
I
kind of explain.
I would move that we authorize the working group to create and submit a grant application to the TD Bank Charitable Foundation Housing for Everyone
Great.
program.
Second.
Just to clarify on that, Alan, I think you said me and keep it. I'm not on that
Oh.
working group. Right? It's Steve and maybe I misread it.
Let me look. Oh, it did say Kate and Mark.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was
You're off
me.
the
I
hook.
didn't think it was me, but I wasn't sure.
You and me.
So you guys, and I can.
I didn't know I was on
about
that
the
working
work
group.
probably
When did I get on
You were
there?
voluntold
I was voluntold.
through email. Yes.
So
She has receipts.
Okay.
it'll be fun. I'll help too, because I
Okay.
wrote the
Yeah.
grant
I just I don't know much about it, so you're gonna have
Okay.
to bring me
Trying
up
to
to
get money.
speed.
Yeah.
Basically, TD Bank for affordable housing has a huge pile of money, and they do.
Yeah.
I think the grants have to be 275,000 this year, if I read it correctly,
I haven't read it through
or
it
something
yet.
like. But there's a set number of grants. I think they're giving out 20 of them or something like that in areas where they operate.
Okay.
And
And we want to
we've
apply.
applied unsuccessfully twice, so third time's the charm.
Yep.
So,
Basically, it's a way to extend RAP.
So if we get the grant this year, I'll get the credit because I'm the.
Yes.
so I made the
Yeah.
motion. Steve
difference.
seconded. All in favor? 6-0, 6-0, 6 being present. Are there any other issues in correspondence? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Westborough TV. Thank you, public.
You guys are too